After Xi Jinping's phone call with Trump, the PRC's Taiwan Affairs Office immediately rushed to show its loyalty, saying it would treat Xi's remarks on Taiwan as guidance for its work. The CCP has always used both the pen and the gun on Taiwan, and psychological warfare is exactly what the Taiwan Affairs Office is good at. However, Taiwan concerns the shared interests of countries around the world, and especially the core interests of neighboring countries. At present, Taiwan's security issue is evolving into an international security issue. Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's statement that, if something happens to Taiwan, it means something has happened to Japan, is precisely a reflection of this trend. The CCP finds this intolerable, and Xi Jinping is losing sleep over it. What keeps Xi even more awake at night is Trump's push for a peace plan in Ukraine. Once the Russia-Ukraine war is halted, a grand drama of Trump encircling and crushing the Communist Party will begin to play out, and the CCP will find itself caught in a 10-sided ambush laid by the Western world. Don't miss the next drop, subscribe and hit the bell. After Xi Jinping's phone call with Trump, the CCP's Taiwan Affairs Office immediately declared its loyalty. According to the CCP mouthpiece Xinhua News Agency, spokesperson Peng Qing'an of the Taiwan Affairs Office said at a regular press conference on November 26 that they would use Xi Jinping's important speech and its spirit as guidance for work related to Taiwan. The CCP's tactics toward Taiwan are always the pen plus the gun, and what the Taiwan Affairs Office excels at is the pen of psychological warfare. On November 26, the Wall Street Journal reported that the recent hit TV drama Silent Glory Inside China reflects precisely this psychological offensive against Taiwan. The drama tells the story of Wu Shi, the highest-ranking communist spy in Taiwan's history, along with many other CCP agents. It directly stirs up nationalist sentiments, and Wu Shi's former residence in Fuzhou has even become a red tourism check-in spot. The strategic goal of this drama has only one purpose: to prepare the public mentally for a potential conflict. At the same time, state-owned theater troupes are only allowed to stage war-themed productions. Other genres are reportedly blocked from approval altogether. This reveals a top-down directive to steer cultural creation toward themes of national struggle. On the other side of the strait, the drama has, as expected, drawn intense attention and scrutiny. It has not become wildly popular in Taiwan, but it cannot be ignored either. Taiwanese media, such as TVBS and China Times, have reported on the drama and pointed out that it is an open commemoration of underground CCP members who sacrificed themselves for the party. Some reports highlighted a scene involving the slogan, "Taiwan must return," warning that this is cause for alarm. Taiwan is where the Republic of China found its foothold. Although the ROC lost the Chinese mainland, it has stubbornly stood firm on this island, which General MacArthur once called an unsinkable aircraft carrier. If it were to fall into the hands of the Communist Party, Communist forces could soon threaten Japan and other smaller countries, and the U.S. strategic position in the Far East could be offset or even overwhelmed. A former Taiwanese legislator noted that the CCP's pen plus gun strategy toward Taiwan aims to shape the psychological battlefield well before any military action is taken. By portraying espionage and sacrifice as glorious and romantic, Beijing is attempting to legitimize its sovereignty claims over Taiwan and demoralize its opponents. For a long time, CCP leaders have been adept at using the pen to consolidate their rule and advance their strategic goals. Since Mao Zedong's Yan'an talks on literature and art in 1942, one principle has never changed: all art must abandon art for art's sake and become part of the party's cultural army, serving politics under strict control. This principle established culture as a tool that the state can directly mobilize, and this tradition continues to this day. The CCP's latest cultural campaign is a coordinated operation accompanied by some radical gun moves, such as a PRC consul general threatening to cut off the head of a Japanese leader, as well as China sending Coast Guard vessels to disputed islands. This campaign seeks to isolate Taiwan internationally while mobilizing people on the mainland. The CCP's goal is to make Taiwan's situation psychologically unbearable, as if the only way out is to negotiate with the CCP and obediently surrender. In this context, Silent Glory is a piece of strategic propaganda. It reminds people that in great power struggles, the battle for hearts and minds is waged not only through missiles, but also through carefully crafted narratives on TV screens. Xi Jinping's anxiety. Zhong Jidong, an assistant research fellow at the Taiwan Center for National Defense Strategy and Resources Research, wrote on November 26 that on November 24, 2025, Xi Jinping unexpectedly took the initiative to call U.S. President Trump and held a phone conversation that lasted just over an hour. Beijing then took the unusual step of immediately releasing its version of the Xi-Trump conversation. However, it is noteworthy that the Chinese and American sides described the focus of the call very differently, each emphasizing its own talking points. The article argues that, in order to respond to the CCP's outward expansion, Trump has adopted a three-step strategy on Taiwan Strait security and is steadily building a regional security architecture centered on the United States. He is integrating America's allies and partners to collectively deter the CCP's military adventurism in the East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, and South China Sea. This has led to the internationalization of Taiwan Strait security. The Taiwan Strait is no longer just a matter between the two sides of the strait, or between China and the US, or between China and Japan, or Japan and the US. It has become the Taiwan Strait of East Asia, the Indo-Pacific, and indeed the entire world. Japan's recent active advocacy of the concept of a single theater in East Asia, and its claim that a contingency in Taiwan could constitute a survival-threatening situation justifying the exercise of collective self-defense, reflect this new development in the internationalization of Taiwan Strait security. Under the U.S. Japan security framework, the internationalization of Taiwan Strait security is undoubtedly a thorn in the CCP's side. Xi Jinping's late-night, urgent phone call to President Trump reflects his anxiety over the new developments in the internationalization of Taiwan Strait security. However, America's push to internationalize Taiwan's security will inevitably become the greatest challenge to the CCP's One China principle, without parallel. A report in the New York Times on November 26 also seemed to recognize Xi's anxiety, suggesting that Asia-Pacific diplomacy is at a critical juncture, as this Monday, the CCP's top leader Xi Jinping urgently took the initiative to call President Trump. The call was triggered by Japan's leader making the strongest statement since World War II, that, if something happens to Taiwan, it means something has happened to Japan. For military planners, Taiwan's proximity to southern Japan and U.S. bases has long been obvious, but Japan's new strategic posture is still enough to unsettle the CCP leadership. The CCP's escalating threats against Japan have had no effect. Professor Ichiro Kurogi of Kanda University of International Studies points out that, the more pressure the CCP exerts on Japan, the more Japan feels the need to prepare and recognizes the growing danger. The approval rating of Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi is rising, and the Japanese public's sense of crisis is strengthening. As the CCP's anxiety keeps rising, Xi Jinping finally could not hold back and forced himself to pick up the phone and talk to Trump. According to a November 26 report by Taiwan Central News Agency, Kai Liang, director of the Northeast Asia Research Center at the Shanghai Institutes for International Studies, believes that Xi's phone call with Trump, focused on Taiwan, was an attempt to communicate directly with Washington and urge the U.S., within the diplomatic framework, to restrain its allies' related behavior. Trying to curry favor with the U.S. China orders at least 10 more ships of soybeans. After the Xi-Trump meeting in Busan at the end of October, the White House announced that China would purchase 12 million tons of U.S. soybeans by the end of the year. Following Xi's phone call with Trump on Monday, China accelerated its purchasing pace. According to Reuters, citing two informed sources, China has bought at least 10 cargoes of U.S. soybeans since Tuesday, November 25, worth about $300 million. China's soybean purchases this time exceeded expectations. According to Trump himself, during his call with Xi, he urged Xi to speed up and increase Beijing's purchases of U.S. goods, and Xi basically agreed. One trader said China had bought about 12 cargoes of soybeans, while another estimated the purchases at 10 to 15 cargoes. Each cargo carries about 60,000 to 65,000 tons of soybeans. Reuters noted that although U.S. soybeans are more expensive than Brazilian soybeans, China still chose U.S. beans. According to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Chinese state-owned enterprise COFCO has played a leading role in these purchases, booking nearly 2 million tons of U.S. soybeans since late October. Even so, the recent deals still fall far short of the White House's target of 12 million tons by year's end. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent said on November 25 that China's plan to buy U.S. soybeans is exactly on track, and cited an agreement stipulating that Beijing will purchase 87.5 million tons of U.S. soybeans over the next 3.5 years. Lai Ching-te announces large special defense budget. President Lai Ching-te of the Republic of China, Taiwan, said on November 26 that the CCP's threat to Taiwan has intensified in recent years, with Beijing seeking to use force to coerce unification and swallow up Taiwan. He announced a special defense budget of 1.25 trillion new Taiwan dollars, about $40 billion US, to build systems such as a Shield of Taiwan air defense network, demonstrating his determination to protect Taiwan. Lai pointed out that Beijing's threats against Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific region are growing more serious. Recently, in Japan, in the Philippines, and around the Taiwan Strait, China has been carrying out various military provocations, gray zone maritime activities, and disinformation operations as part of a composite threat. Regarding the conflict between China and Japan sparked by Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's remarks about a Taiwan contingency, Lai told the media, "We hope China can understand that every country in the Indo-Pacific bears responsibility for maintaining peace and stability in this region. We especially hope that China, as a major country in this region, can show the sense of responsibility that a major country should have." However, China has continuously threatened and attacked its neighbors. This is not the behavior of a responsible major power. Will the US and Russia form an alliance? The CCP falls into a 10-sided ambush. The trend toward the internationalization of Taiwan Strait security already leaves Xi sleepless, but there is another development which, if it truly comes to pass, would not just keep him from sleeping, it would threaten the CCP's very survival: Trump's recent peace proposal for the Russia-Ukraine war. On November 25, Trump posted on social media that a peace agreement on Ukraine is very close to being reached. With participation from both Russia and Ukraine, the original 28-point peace plan drafted by the United States has been further refined, and only a few differences remain to be resolved. Trump said he had instructed his envoy Steve Witkoff to travel to Moscow to meet with Russian President Putin for consultations. At the same time, U.S. Army Secretary Daniel P. Driscoll will meet with Ukrainian authorities in Kyiv to discuss the peace plan. Ukrainian President Zelensky stated that Kyiv is ready to advance the updated peace agreement backed by the United States. The Ukrainian president's office announced that Zelensky plans to meet with Trump this Thursday, November 27, Thanksgiving, and may accept the peace deal. On November 25, Andriy Yermak, head of the Ukrainian president's office, said in an interview with Axios via video link that US and Ukrainian officials have in principle agreed on most parts of the plan, but Zelensky wants to personally negotiate with Trump on the issue of territory. Yermak said the main gap that US and Ukrainian leaders still need to bridge is territorial. The 28-point plan between the US and Russia would grant Russia additional territory beyond the areas it currently controls, which has triggered fierce opposition from Ukraine and some of its supporters. The US argument at the time was that the state of the battlefield shows Ukraine will lose those territories sooner or later anyway. Yermak said that aside from territorial issues, the current 19-point plan aligns with Ukraine's interests and respects its red lines. Politico reported on November 25 that, regardless of the final form of the peace agreement, President Trump has only one top priority: to end the war in Ukraine. A senior White House official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said, "The ultimate goal is peace. That's the most important thing that can be achieved here. To stop the fighting, to stop the killing. That is what he most wants to see." The official added that Trump will sign any agreement that can end the war, and that both sides can reach as quickly as possible. Why is Trump so eager to put a period at the end of the Russia-Ukraine war? Trump's biggest hidden concern is still the CCP. He wants to draw Russia into the camp of Western countries. This is a reverse Nixon strategy. What the CCP fears most is precisely this. Once the reverse Nixon strategy begins, the internationalization of Taiwan's security will take solid shape, and Russia will also exert pressure on the CCP from the north. The CCP will then fall into a 10-sided ambush. 4. Xi-Trump meetings, possible within the year. The show has only just begun. After the Xi-Trump hotline, U.S. Treasury Secretary Bissent told CNBC that, by nature, the U.S. and the CCP are destined to be competitors, but right now the relationship is very good. Bissent said that in the coming year, President Trump and CCP leader Xi Jinping may have as many as 4 meetings. Trump previously revealed that he had accepted Xi's invitation to visit China in April next year, and he has also invited Xi to come to the U.S. for a state visit later next year. The other 2 potential meetings would be at next year's APEC summit hosted by China and the G20 summit hosted by the United States. From this phone call between Xi and Trump, it is clear that America's key concerns are the Russia-Ukraine war and U.S.-China economic and trade relations. Fentanyl touches on the physical and mental health of the American people, while soybeans and other agricultural products involve the core interests of American farmers. These are all elements of Make America Great Again, so right now Trump needs Xi's cooperation. After taking office for the second time, Trump has, from time to time, frankly stated that he has a good relationship with the dictator Xi Jinping and has extended olive branches to China on international occasions. This has led Xi to believe that he has an opportunity to persuade Trump to treat Taiwan as a bargaining chip in order to stabilize U.S.-China relations. Trump's strong intervention in mediating the Russia-Ukraine war has a very clear goal: to free Russia from its entanglement with the CCP. He has been laying the groundwork for this for a long time. Some analysts note that since the collapse of the Soviet Union, reconciliation with the West has always been Russia's dream. Although Russia is on the fringe of European civilization, it is still a part of Western culture and ideology and has produced countless cultural giants and brilliant works of art. Returning to the West has long been Russia's dream, but the West, led by the United States, has always treated Russia as a crude barbarian and kept it outside the door. Trump broke with his predecessor's policy of isolating and sanctioning Russia, and is willing to help Russia integrate into the Western world. Trump understands that an economy only the size of Guangdong province is no real opponent of the United States, but it is a dangerous neighbor for the CCP. Russia also has no desire to see the CCP at its side become a geopolitical rival. Once the two Ps, Putin and Trump, cooperate, Trump's reverse Nixon strategy of joining forces with Russia to strangle the CCP will succeed.